Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mass Youth Soccer Coaching Conversations. My name is Ian Mulliner. We will get going in 1 minute. What time we got? We got 7:32. I always like to start my meetings on the half hour at 7:33. Sounds made up. Okay, at 7:33. Here we go. How many have we got? 14. Magical. All right, so again, welcome, good evening. Are we going to record, Jamie? What do you think?
Yep, it's in, recording's already in progress.
Yeah, I just want to introduce real quick my producer for this evening, Jamie Balboni, marketing and social media guru over at Mass Youth Soccer, and monitoring and making sure I stay between the guardrails, Tammy Endow, our member services manager, just to make sure that all of this stays on the up and up. Again, right up front, I want to give a shout out to Ted Doucette. Ted, I want to thank you for actually contacting us and requesting a coaching conversation, something that we enjoy doing on behalf of good people such as yourself, but certainly any time that our membership has a request. So appreciate the shout out. And as I said earlier, I'll probably be calling on you at some point, but hopefully I'll hit the mark and get close to what you wanted. So without further ado, let's move on. All right, so I want this to be more of an interactive type of situation, and I don't want it just to be me presenting to you. So as you can see there, I'm saying, let's go into breakout rooms right away, and we'll see if 5 minutes is long enough. But the one question I want you to figure out amongst yourselves is, what is early specialization in soccer anyway? When you get into the breakout room, make sure you introduce yourself to your fellow room members. Where are you coaching? What town? What club? What organization? What age group you're coaching? And what is early specialization? And what does it mean to you? So, Jamie, if you can get them in a breakout room, that would be spectacular. So right off the bat, in you go. Mike, and give us what your discussion was about and what did you come up with in response to the question, what is early specialization in soccer? Not a right or wrong, just interested to know so we can make the conversation flow.
All right, I'll jump in. So we talk early specialization is really what to us is what age is it too early to start playing a dedicated position, whether it be forward, mid, or back, things like that. And we talked about why you don't do it in the early years, and what all our opinion was is when to do it.
Did you come up with a consensus, Ted, by any chance?
We felt it was probably about middle school to U14 was about the time to start specializing. Kids may gravitate to other positions, before then or around that time. So that's about the time we thought about, we all discussed.
Great. Anybody else? So what we'll do tonight is we'll adopt this format. When somebody's made a statement there, as Ted just has, and thank you for that, we can either add to it or we can challenge it, not in a negative way, by asking a question if you're not clear on what the person speaking is saying or what they're alluding to, what direction they're going in. But please do not come on and just repeat what the last person said. So you can add to it, you can question it, but you can't repeat it. Anybody else want to add on to what Ted has started out with his group? Again, no wrong answers. All right, so I'm going to assume by your silence that you are not willing to participate in that part. All right. So before I hit the next thing, can you just go into the chat room and let me know with a yes or no if you can see on your Zoom taskbar an annotate word or pencil, or in the where the three dots are with more, if you can find annotate there. Just give me a yes or no in the chat. And Jamie, if you could just monitor that, that'd be really helpful.
Tammy, are you seeing a chat bar?
Oh, it's disappeared.
I see no chat, Ian. Sorry.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's what I was just texting you,
Yeah.
Jim. I don't see a chat anywhere. Thought it was just me.
All right, so you can open up your mics and just give me a quick yes or no if you've got an annotate button.
None for me.
Yes, after I click on the view options at the very top,
Yep.
I did see a toolbar and now it's disappeared.
Same.
Same. Okay. All right, so take a read of that. And this is from John O'Sullivan, the best-selling author and Changing the Game Project founder and CEO. Now, not exactly what the direction that you were going in, Ted, but when we're talking early specialization in soccer, this is what we're referring to most often. It's the idea that soccer is the only sport that child participates in. So with that said, let's get into the piece that Ted was talking about. So now let's get them back into a breakout room. We'll figure out the chat later, and let's have a conversation about what age is it appropriate to keep a player in one position. And for those of you that have got there, Ted's last room, I want to know why. Welcome back. We got everybody back yet? Not quite.
Not
You
quite.
might have to explain that little ditty to Jamie.
Yeah, I might have to. I believe this is the direction you wanted me to go, though, Ted, is it not?
Well, this is my question that this is where all my questions originated. Yes.
Yes. All right, so hopefully now you can see the idea of being pigeonholed. Sorry about that before you went into the breakout rooms. All right, who wants to share what you came up with in your breakout room? Let's go with breakout room 1. Somebody from breakout room 1.
I'll jump in, Ian. So, we did spend some time talking about specialization in terms of goalkeeping. And, I kind of shared my struggle about how it's tempting to allow a player to specialize as a goalkeeper earlier than it would be for a field player, just because the scarcity of people who want to play goalkeeper. But we also talked about just in general. I mean, for myself, I had players. I had U15 girls last year who were still playing multiple positions. They didn't necessarily love it. And sometimes they'd be like, I don't play that position. And I was like, yes, you do. But I want my players to play multiple positions as long as feasible, even if that's up through U16, U17.
Okay. Can you add a why to that, Justin? It's okay if you can't, but I'm just interested.
Yeah, I think that, part of it has to do with physical development. And, what may make you a very good defender at 10, 11, 12 might not still be there when you're 14, 15, 16. But also conversely, you may have selected a position or tried to select a position based on what you're not good at
Mhm.
10, 11, 12. And, if you've closed yourself off, as an example, I have a player who's not playing for me. She's not at my club. She plays futsal for me, but she was always a defender until this past year in high school, her sophomore year, moved to striker and scored like 40% of the team's goals. And it was like, if you had not been open to making that change, if you had not, kept an open mind there and been willing to try something new, I actually think that striker might actually be more her quote unquote natural position.
Mhm.
So, I think a lot of it has to do with that physical maturation and not wanting to pigeonhole somebody before they've fully developed.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you for that response. Very on point. All right. Breakout room 2, the group of 2, Ted and Kevin, I believe, had similar conversations because I was in there for a while. Breakout room 2.
Yeah, I'll chime
Kevin,
in.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we talked similar to what Justin just said. We talked about playing everywhere. And what we talked about largely was the comfort level at each of the positions. It's important for the players to see the game from all different perspectives. Playing with their back to goal, playing, in the back where they see everything coming at them, playing in midfield or in wide positions or goalkeeper, because it just makes them a more well-rounded player. And as they advance through the ranks, they may or may not start to gravitate to certain areas of the field that they feel comfortable with, but they won't know that unless you put them there. And they, just keep moving around as long as you can. So that's where we landed.
That was good. It was a good place to land. I enjoyed the Matt Reese story.
Yeah, what I had mentioned was, and I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Matt Reese, when he played for the Revs, he once said that he played striker right up until he was early in college, and then he switched to goalkeeping. And I have to believe that, that knowledge of what strikers are thinking and how they move benefited him somehow. And so I often tell that to my players, that not to specialize too early, too young to make a career decision.
Brilliant. So I can piggyback onto that, if that's okay with everybody, with Brad Guzan, who, when I was the director of coaching in Illinois, was part of our Olympic development program out there as a 1984. And at the state level, he played in goal, where he obviously started to make a career. But in his local club, he only played forward. So very similar to Matt Reese. And certainly wasn't one to be pigeonholed, wasn't our friend Brad. However, I digress. But strange that these goalkeepers start out as forwards. That's a whole other coaching conversation, I think. Breakout room 3. What have you got for us? Come on, it's not a conversation if you don't talk.
Hey, I can chip in.
Thanks, Bill.
Hey, we went both ways about specializing in sport and then specializing in a position. Personally, I think most of us agreed, we felt middle school was probably a little bit too early, but there is a gravitation towards being more defensive minded versus being more attack minded. To your discussion about keepers, my daughter was a keeper through college, but she started out as a forward. And with some of her, with her club team and her U19 Burlington team, she also got to play some attacking center mid. So kept her foot skills up, her awareness up. She loved to shoot.
Yep.
She didn't like to run as much though. And then the same thing with my son. He was more of a center mid, and he gets to college and he's a center back. Mostly because he was tall and he talked a lot. But again, I tell the kids that I've always coached that if you peg yourself, you're limiting your options as you keep playing the game, and whatever the team needs is hopefully what you can provide them.
That's great, and I'm going to come back to the point that you made about the players pigeonholing themselves, because that does happen, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's not just coaches who go, oh, you're a defender and you're going to be a defender if you play for me for the rest of your life. It's also about the player themselves going, I'm really comfortable in pick your position. Goalkeeper, forward seems to be the order of the day, but it could be any position on the field. And they're not too comfortable when you move them out of position. So it isn't just a coaching influence, it's also a player influence, which is a nice segue into the next slide. And what factors influence your decision to either move players around or keep them in a singular position for either multiple games or for an entire season, or maybe just for an entire game? So what factors influence your decision? We could try, for those of you that can find the annotate, if you look at your taskbar, you might find an annotate button. And when you click on annotate, you should get another taskbar that has a text option and a draw option. If you have that fortunately in front of you, please give one or the other a try. As you can see, I found the button and I will now clear that. There's also a text option where you can click in. So you can type into the text option. Now, it doesn't have to be relevant to beliefs. It could be attitudes. It could be context. Brilliant. We've got Ted already all over the annotate. That's magical. If only I could spell hello. All right. Anybody else? If you can't find annotate, please feel free to open up your mic. I do want this to be interactive because I'm sure you've got some questions about it that I'd love to be able to help you and guide you to an answer on it. So don't be shy. There's not many on the call.
Ian, I think part of the question would be kids at different ages, these answers to beliefs, attitudes, and contexts would vary between a grade 2 player compared to a grade 10 player, and comparing that to a travel team to a club team. So
Yeah.
it would fluctuate which way how you would answer this question.
Okay.
Because you would think at the younger ages, you want the beliefs that the kids all play and let them get all that experience, and regardless of the outcome of the game, they all play, and they play different positions. Because I don't believe you're playing for the World Cup at grade 2.
I 100% with you there, Jose. I would like, I'm going to put you on the spot. I hope you can remember, because it always makes me smile when I read any email you've sent me. It's never the email that you send me that makes me smile, by the way. I want to make that clear. It's that little blurb at the bottom about popcorn.
Yeah, so so for those that don't know, I'm also the education director for Essex County. So the signature underneath the name and all that gobbledygook. And I paraphrase, I'm in the car on a phone, so I can't pull up my email to be word for word precise. But basically, all the popcorn goes into the kettle at once, but not all the popcorn pops at the same time. And don't judge your kid, because their turn for the kid to pop could be later. I paraphrase that, the actual wording of how it says, but
You've done very
many
well.
people feel that, you know, at you have a 12-year-old, they should be doing A, B, and C. Well, if you think my baby only can do A, and don't judge a kid just because of that. And there's a lot of mindset that people have to realize.
Absolutely. And again, on both sides. So things that I think about when I'm thinking about this, what are we going to do with the players? I think about, well, I'm going to talk about context first, but it's certainly going to be aligned with beliefs. So you all coach, I imagine, inside an organization. I imagine that that organization has a philosophy and maybe a vision and maybe a mission for player development. So that would be the first thing that I would say. I need to figure out what that is if I'm going to coach within this organization. What's the mission and what's the vision and what are the values and maybe core values when it comes to the players and the player development? That's certainly going to influence playing time, positions, and different things that go on with the players. So that would always be a starting point for me. And then I would be figuring out, well, are my values actually aligned with those values? And are my beliefs aligned with those beliefs? Because as a coach, we've all come with our own bucket of experiences, and we dig into that bucket and we pull from that bucket quite often. And we may have the mindset of, I don't believe in moving players around, or we may have the mindset similar to what Justin was saying, his under 15 team, they're still moving around different positions and having different experiences, even at age where potentially we could say, well, maybe you want to start specializing a little bit more at that age group. Why? Just so they become good at something. So just thinking about, again, it's not a right or wrong, definitely not a right or wrong. What are the things that influence your decision in terms of you as a coach and the organization that you coach within? So what is the values and what is the attitude for you to begin your decision on what to do with player rotation? Anybody want to add anything else on the back of that? I do want to, who was it that wrote Player Happiness? I think that was it Craig, was it? Maybe I've got the name right, wrong?
Yes, it was.
All right, Craig, can you just give us a heads up on player happiness and willingness to play?
Sure. So just a little background. I coach, the oldest group I coach is fifth grade girls.
Okay.
And then I coach down to, I've got kindergartners, first graders. We have some that, if we put them in certain positions, they just are miserable. So it's I don't want to put player misery, but avoiding player misery sometimes, it's as much as we try. And I alluded to this in our group, a breakout session, with practices, I think we have much more success at getting players to kind of, play different positions.
Yep.
But in a game type situation, sometimes it's we have certain players that have sort of self-specialized, I guess, just because they're either happier playing defense or they want to play striker, or a couple that do like playing goalie as well. So
yeah, or they want to be as far away from the people on the sideline as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. So, or their coaches.
It's a reality. Or their coaches. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that, Craig, based on your response previously.
In a good way.
No, well, there you go. I appreciate that. I certainly appreciate the fact you put player happiness as opposed to player misery.
Yep.
What I would, the only thing it made me think of is, certainly 100% in agreement with, we've got to keep them happy. and they've got to be willing to play it. So that is also now aligned with what's their readiness to learn a new position. And that's a place that I don't think that we've investigated near enough as coaches. How do we figure out what the readiness to learn is for our players? Well, it's going to be based on their attitude. It's also going to be based on their experiences. And it's going to definitely be based on the context in which we ask them and what we ask them to do. And as Craig just alluded to there, so much easier for them to try things in practice, not so much in games. So why do we think that is? Why does that exist, that players are willing to try things in practice, but not so much in games?
I mean, I think that
Because
has
the parents
to do...
aren't there to yell at them if they get something wrong.
Straight there, straight there.
But that goes into just I think not only that, I mean, that's my cynical way of putting it, but I think there's less judgment if you make a mistake. So, you're not going to get, if you give up a goal in practice, who cares? If you get beaten in practice, who cares? You're trying something new. But I think it's just the ability to make a mistake in a low pressure situation.
Good. It's a good start.
But then that really comes down to us, though, in the culture and the environment that we have, like, so that our players understand that, we keep them in the challenge state rather than a threat state. And, maybe some of that is how we react to mistakes, quote, I'm using air quotes there, mistakes that they make in a game, how we react, but then also how parents react. And then, a lot of that's just how much parent education can we do so that parents are understanding that, it's learning is messy. And you don't just learn in practice. I would argue, you probably learn more. You learn more in a game, and the pressure of again, quotes, like, is helpful because it puts you in a position where you feel like you have to make a decision versus, being able to kind of slough it off of, that it just doesn't matter. And I think that, like, the players just need to understand that as much as parents do, that you're going to make mistakes in games, and that is completely okay. It's completely accepted. And we should actually reward them for trying things in games. Although that's hard to tell a lot of parents. And that's a hard conversation, a hard thing to explain to them, though, to some parents, not all, some.
All right, so we're really getting to the nitty gritty here, and it's good. So what I heard, Justin, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if it's not what you meant, say, no, that's not the direction. But the culture that you create within your team. So not just the players, but the team behind the team, the parents of those players. And you use the word education, which for years, everybody has tried to have a parent education piece. And the parents want nothing to do with parent education, but they don't mind parent engagement and they don't mind parent involvement, apparently. Much more fluffy words. But you're absolutely onto something with this culture idea of what is the culture that you've created with your players and with the parents of your players. Do they understand that failure, mistakes, are a natural evolution and part of the game? And if you create an environment where you normalize error and you just see mistakes as a way of learning to improve, that you can have a positive influence on the culture. And again, you're absolutely right, 100% agree. Not everybody's going to buy into that mindset, but it's got to start somewhere. And it starts with us as the coach and the leader of the environment to try to influence and create a culture with the people that we have the most contact with, the players and the parents of the players. So now we're really onto something. This is good. Anybody got anything to add?
Hi, this is Harper. I'm joining as a parent/volunteer. So just from my perspective, I think growth mindset, like, is a buzzword that a lot of people are familiar with, which is very much this culture of it's okay to make a mistake and that's how you learn. So that's definitely a buzzword that I hear at work and things like that. And then in terms of parents on the sideline, I mean, you know, my girls, my older one now is in your ODP program, but you know, they mainly have come up through Newton girls soccer, and I forget what they call it, if it's sideline silence or something, but I mean, they just tell you immediately that you cannot be talking to your kid from the sideline. And one gentleman event, like one year, he yelled at his kid one game and there was a big thing about it. And then he did it again and he could not come back to any games. I mean, they just enforced it. So for what it's worth, they take it very seriously and the parents don't engage at the games.
And how do you feel about that, Harper?
I mean, you know, at first we moved here from Philadelphia, so it was way different there. I mean, I think, you know, somebody got in like a brawl at a little league game. So it was definitely different, but you know, now that I've been in that program for, you know, 6-7 years or whatever,
Yep.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, it is a cultural thing. Like whoever was saying that, it's Craig. It's absolutely a cultural thing, and it is just not acceptable. Maybe like a light like tennis or golf clap or something, but that's just how it is.
That's interesting that that's enforced. And yeah, I have a hard time with things like that. As soon as I heard about silent Saturdays and silent Sundays, I understand why. There's a message trying to be sent out and hopefully received that, you know, it's the children's game and let the children play and make their own decisions. But there's also another aspect to it of one of the reasons they play is they like to be cheered on. They don't necessarily want to be booed and have negative things said, obviously, but they do want to be cheered on. So yeah, I'm always at a crossroads with that one. But I certainly appreciate the sentiment and the point that you've made, and it's very valid in today's sideline behavior, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks. But certainly that can have an influence, and it can influence your decision on where a child plays. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else got anything to add before we move on? I do think I want to answer this one from Justin, though, in a second. Anybody else got anything? All right, Justin, if you don't mind opening up, can you just quantify a certain amount of time?
Well, it's not something that I do, but it's something that I've discussed with another coach at the club I used to be at, who would do it for like 3 weeks, you know, of course in a club environment. So you've got them 9 months, 10 months a year.
Yep.
For like 3 weeks at a time. You're playing, like now you're going to be focused as playing forward for 3 weeks, then mid, you know, and then we just rotate. And I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks is how long he would usually do it for. You know, and I understood his reasoning for it. I don't necessarily know that I mean, you know, so there's something you said about the stickiness of learning, et cetera, but like my feeling is I want them to be playing multiple positions simultaneously, not, you know, one at a time for whatever the block is for.
Yeah, understood. I appreciate that. So it's certainly way. I mean, similar to what Harper just said about the sideline behavior and the silent Saturday or silent Sunday or silent sideline. It's a way of doing a thing, and in terms of player development, it's not too far out off the rails, so to speak, because they are. It does sound like, and you can tell me if it's not the case. It does sound like that after the 3 weeks, they do get to experience another position. And then you've got this idea, well, if I do it for that long, have I really developed in that position with all the attributes that that position is asking of me. I'll come back to it maybe at some point, but there is also a lot to be said for taking them out of that situation after a game or two, putting them into a completely different situation, and then putting them back in to see what they remember, and that would be really a good qualifier and measure of whether it's actually transferred into learning. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm certainly not going to sit here and say no, that's absolutely wrong. I would be interested to see or hear what the outcome of this periodization is, as it is affectionately known. All right, awesome. Let's move on. If I can actually move on. Let's go. And first, what I'll do is I will clear all the annotations. So from a coaching standpoint, what do you need to know as a coach, and what do they need to know as a player? Essentially, what is your starting point and where are you trying to take them? So anybody want to give this a try, or if you prefer, you can use annotation. Oh, Harper's all over it. Brilliant. Okay, that's good. Like that. If you want to use annotation, please go ahead and feel free. What's your starting point? All of you coaches out there should have a starting point.
Hey, mine's usually
Again,
who
if
wants.
annotation-
Mine
Go ahead,
usually
go ahead.
is who wants to play goalie, and then not knowing the kids. I have a team this spring that I know none of the players, so
Right.
just watching them in practice, who kind of same thing, who gravitates to more defensive role and feel comfortable there, who gravitates more to being an active scorer or an attacking player. The skilled players I'm going to probably put in center mid for a while and then start that way. But from ground zero, that's kind of what I'd start with. And then what I need to know is at the right spot. Are they actually really comfortable there? Am I missing something? Is the best defender actually a better forward? And that's where hopefully I see it in practice. It's hard to do in a game because I find once the kids get older, I mean, there's a fear of failure and a fear of failing their teammates and getting ridiculed by their peers. So unless you set the tone right, that mistakes are okay, and this is what we're going to do for a while until we kind of coagulate as a team. For me, that's my baseline, what I need to know. Same thing with the kids. What do they need to know? Failure is fine. And wherever you find your comfortable spot, then we'll try to make you strong there, but don't discount being placed someplace else.
Awesome. And we keep coming back to this goalkeeper thing, and it's definitely a factor. I can speak as somebody who's overseeing the Olympic development program, and in our 2010 girls age group, we have 0 people willing to be a goalkeeper, i.e. 0 goalkeepers came out to even give it a try. And for the goalkeepers, only for the goalkeepers, we currently accept all comers to provide them with some form of supplemental training. Now, that's one idea, but I'm going to go back to the thing that was said earlier about, they're willing to do it in practice. So with goalkeepers, if you find that you've got a dearth of goalkeepers or people who are even willing to take it on, it really is upon us as the coaches to run goalkeeper training sessions at some point during the season to demonstrate that, hey, it's not as intimidating as you may think. And maybe you adopt a policy where each player will play at least half a game throughout the season. again, not an easy sell. Much easier for me to sit here and say that, but not an easy sell to any child. But again, I would back it up with the fact that we're going to run some goalkeeper training sessions, you know, and it's going to be part of our regular seasonal plan that we run goalkeeper training sessions so everybody gets a chance to experience it, because you just never know. So that is something I would add in for the goalkeepers. Let me have a look here. This one, let me see. That was Justin. I think the kids need to put, yeah. Don't disagree with that. Robert, you haven't said much tonight. Go on then. Give me this one. Variety of experiences and coach influence. What do you mean by that? Is that a starting point or is it a destination for you?
That was actually mine. I think his is the one above.
Oh, really? Even better. Robert, give me this one then.
I actually said to try multiple positions, at least during practice, just to try new things. To get, I coach U10 girls primarily. And again, to get them to become a keeper, we bring in like a professional goalkeeper and just do training with them and try to get them not afraid of playing that position, just to see if they can enjoy that role, just to create that environment where they can grow into different positions and find out what they like and have fun.
All right, so now you're going to get 20 messages about how do you get your hands on a professional goalkeeper to come out and help your players, and that is perfectly fine for that to happen.
So we had a sports the sports habitat in town, and there was a retired professional goalie that does training, and he has a training program. And it's a really, really kind of a cool thing to see, you know, different zones of the goal, and he puts a rope around it. It's just a really cool training program we have access to.
Are you saying it's legal in your town to tie children to crossbars and goalposts? Is that what you're saying, Robert? Because we can send people out right now if that's the case. I've seen it done a bunch of times actually, where they have actually tied the child to goalposts, but it's mobile, so they get it just to give them an idea of angle play and distance from goal. It's really quite neat when you see it in action. It's not as horrific as it actually sounds, as I stated it there. So I appreciate what he's trying to do for the children, and good for you guys for identifying him and bringing him in. That's fantastic. That's cool. All right, so what do you need to know? What should be your starting point? Well, your starting point should always be, who the heck is in front of me? What do they already know? And what are they ready to know? So that should always be your starting point. And it could be based on the age. It could be based on number of years experience. Multiple factors go into determining who's in front of you and what are their needs, because ultimately that's what it's all about. In terms of your destination, it should be to help them develop to their full potential. Now, what does that mean? Well, for me, and you can all have your own versions of your player development philosophy, for me, that means they're going to be a little bit better at something at the end of the time they leave me than when we were when we first met. So that's my idea for my destination. If I can move them on to a better level, fantastic. But if I can just help them to be better at something, I'm okay with that too. But it's always got to be about what are their needs and what can I do to help them. But there's also something else, and you probably see it pop up a time or two here as I try to get out of annotate and click on this slide. So what that is, as I clear annotate, is a slide deck that I'm happy to share with you. Let me see if I can find it. I put this together many moons ago. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see this. with the blue background? Good. All right. So the idea is talking about a system of play, which we really haven't got into tonight. Just kill annotate. Screen sharing is paused again. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So it's about the players. And really, what are the tactical functions, i.e., what is their job in each of the positions? Now, we've got 20 slides before this, but these are the pertinent slides. If you're interested in this presentation, I've kind of given everybody an idea of offensively and defensively, what each position, the role and responsibility, I should say, of each of the positions in 11v11 game. So if you're interested in this, I'm quite happy to share it with you. And you can figure out, based on the age group that you coach and the playing format, 7v7, 9v9, 11v11, what your formations are based on the players that you have with your team. So I've got this, and it definitely is an influencing factor on how I'm going to get them to the destination. My starting point is, who are you and what are you all about and what your needs. Then I've got to try to figure out what are their traits that they have as a soccer player. Are you much more comfortable facing the play and having the game come towards you, potentially defensive? Are you somebody that can get all over the field and be effective with the ball and without the ball, potentially a midfielder? Are you somebody that's quite comfortable up with playing with your back to the way that you're trying to go? A forward. So somebody that's used to not facing the right direction, but capable of manipulating the ball so you can turn and go towards the opponent's goal. So different things that come into play in terms of things that I need to know. Once I figure out what their needs are, then I need to help them to figure out, maybe I need to help them figure out what the needs are by observing them. But I also need to give them a heads up on, hey, if you're going to play in this position, this is what that role means. This is the job for the person who plays in that position that you've chosen. Or this is the job for the person that plays in the position that I've asked you to play in. So there's definitely two sides to this story. It's what do you need to know and what do they need to know? So here, I'm going to see if I can catch you out here. I've got two photographs I'm going to bring up. If anybody knows who that is, shout it out. Not all at once. Nobody knows who that is.
Is that Freddie Adu?
Bill Rowe, you get the prize for the evening. That is indeed Freddie Adu. If you get this one, I will be super surprised. All right, I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue. That's who she was. This is who she became. You're still none the wiser, are you? And when I tell you a name, you'll be even less wise. Her name is Whitney Engren. She has a gold medal from the Olympics as a national team player. Now, the reason that I put these two contrasting pictures here, three contrasting pictures, is that you might say one is an early specialization player and one is a late bloomer. And now I'm going to suggest you don't have to guess. Freddie Adu was an absolute teenage phenom at the age of 14. He was in the under-17 residency at 14 years old. and he went on to make a career for himself playing soccer, but it wasn't the career that everybody thought he would have. Everybody thought he was going to be the next Pele, but it just didn't turn out for young Freddie that way, which you can tell if you look up the amount of national team appearances that he had. However, on the other side of the scale here, we've got Whitney Engren, who is a self-promoted super late bloomer. Didn't make teams all the way through school. She was a huge child. You maybe can't tell from that picture, but she was a huge child, but it ends up making the national team later on in life. Now, again, very, very similar in the fact that, okay, didn't have an outstanding career, but certainly examples of players who were touted to be and who were absolutely not touted to be and make it all the way to the top. So just things to think about for you all as you consider the key takeaways from you from this evening's coaching conversation. So if you don't mind, go back in there one more time, use annotate, and let me know what your takeaways are from tonight's coaching conversation. And I will say my thank yous and goodbyes in a few minutes, but I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to get something down on the slide, please. Not yet. The power of yet. There's your growth mindset. There it is. There is no definitive answer. Love it. It is true. All you can do is provide the best environment you possibly can. Player happiness is back again, and so it should be, because it is key. I'll even add the 2 S's at the end if you hadn't. I thought I saw another one pop up. What happened to it? What happened? I'll give you another minute. I appreciate the fact it's 8:37. You've stayed over time. I really appreciate it. I will stick it. Oh, there we go. Get more. Figure out who's you have in front of you and help them to get to the full potential. Robert, you're going to be just fine. Teach soccer first, positions late. You've got the, oh, you guys make me proud. Love it. Brilliant. All right, so I'm going to stick around. If you have any questions that were not answered or we didn't hit the mark tonight, I will definitely stick around to answer those. Other than that, I just want to say, if you don't have any questions, a massive, massive, supersized thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and attention tonight. And we look forward to seeing you next week and next week's coaching conversation. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Ian.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for this one and for all of them. Appreciate it. See you soon.
You are very welcome. Did we get
Thank
close?
you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, it just a big reinforcement on what I was doing and what I was thinking.
And sometimes that's good enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not messing them up too bad yet. All right, I gotta run.
That
Good night.
wasn't
Thank
the
you.
best yet. That wasn't the best yet, though. Not yet. Brilliant. Thank you.
Ian, quick question.
Yes, please.
Will there at some point be another session? Because you alluded at the beginning that, specialization in soccer also, I mean, I think we went in a certain direction with this conversation, but you referenced, it being the only sport kids play. Will that be a future discussion?
where that will probably end up, Craig, is in a podcast that we put out every once in a while. We've now got our equipment back and we are going to start up the podcast from next week. So if that's something that you have an interest in, we'll definitely get on our podcast list and have a chat about that.
That'd be great. Yeah, we're definitely interested in that. And, as we think about our program,
Yep.
kind of where we should be going in that direction.
Yep,
and how
definitely.
to combat that, I guess, if it's a concern.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Hey, will you be sending out that PowerPoint on positions?
If you send me an email, Bill, I will send it to you.
Perfect.
You are welcome, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you from Annapolis, Maryland.
Yes. That's what I figured.
Keep
And
sending me
not just because of the ship in the background.
Right, with sailing capital of the country,
Yes, it is.
Keep sending me the emails. I love this stuff.
All right. Good.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Thank you.